Hey there, camera volunteers. Here are a few quick tips to use when serving on camera. First, get to know how the tripod works. There are two knobs that adjust how tight or how loose the video head is. One is for panning or going side to side, and the other one is for tilting or moving up and down. If the knobs are too loose, you will move the camera too quickly and it'll shake when trying to make those small adjustments. If those knobs are too tight, it'll make it difficult to make any adjustments, and the tripod may stutter and jump between positions as you try to adjust your shot. To get a smooth shot, there needs to be some resistance in the tripod, but not too much. So before service starts, I'd encourage you to take a few minutes and familiarize yourself with those knobs, adjust them a little. Start with the pan knob, tightening or loosening it, and then panning left and right to see how it changed. Find the right level of resistance to get a smooth motion, and then do the same for the tilt knob. Because we all have different strength levels and preferences, it'll be a little bit different for each volunteer. Remember that the goal is a smooth shot. And as an extra tip, sometimes the A10 volunteer will need you to tilt up and down just a little bit to fix the framing of a subject. They might need their head a little bit closer to the top or move it down a bit. Instead of trying to do this right away, just hold up. Hold the arm of the tripod firmly in one hand and then loosen the tilt knob with your other hand. This will make it much easier to smoothly tilt the camera. Once the shot is framed properly, tighten that tilt knob back up securely. Let's talk about power and cables for a second. You'll notice two cables plugged into the camera. One is for power to keep the camera charged, and the other is a video cable to connect the camera into our switcher. Sometimes those cables become unplugged. When you're plugging the power cable in, make sure that it's in the right input and not the little yellow one that's right next to it. It's a little bit harder to see, but it's this one right at the back. When the camera is plugged in properly, there won't be a battery icon with a time limit on the screen. You'll see it disappear as I plug it in right now. The other video cable will either be an HDMI cable, or if you're on camera one, it might be an SDI cable. Those get plugged in up front on the right side of the camera. The SDI cable has a little lock that twists into place. If you look closely, you can see a little metal bump, and that's how it twists and locks. When you're powering on the camera, push the power switch all the way forwards, where it's labeled camera. To power off, move the switch into the middle position labeled off. Make sure it's not switched all the way back to media. This is a common mistake because it definitely feels more natural to slide that button all the way back, but just make sure that the camera is off and not in media mode after service. Check out our other video about setting up and packing up the cameras if you need to. Each of our cameras is used to create a specific type of shot. When all these different looks come together, it creates a very engaging live stream. So camera 1 is our close-up shot, and it should be zoomed in quite tight on each subject, keeping their head near the top and their mid-torso in the bottom of the frame. Use the tilting trick I mentioned earlier to adjust your angle on different subjects if needed. Camera 2 is our medium shot, and it's important to make sure that this shot isn't zoomed out too much. It should be framed so that the subject's head is at the very top of the frame and their feet are at the bottom. Only zoom out to a wide shot if the A10 volunteer asks you to. The full body head to toe frame is the default for this camera. Camera 3 is our panning shot. It's positioned to get a unique angle on both the stage and the crowd as needed. So during worship, it should always be moving left and right along the stage and zooming out to the crowd if the A10 volunteer asks you to. During preaching, we'll often use camera 3 as an extra close-up angle on the speaker and as a wide shot for when the crowd is responding. Be ready to zoom out quickly when the congregation is clapping and responding. A very simple secret to making our live stream look awesome is this: keep the cameras moving. Whenever a camera is in smooth motion, it draws the eye and keeps guests' attention. This movement is especially important during worship, but it's also a key part of the preaching portion of our services as well. As a general rule for all three cameras, keep them panning left and right along the stage during worship. Be ready to move quickly to a specific vocalist if the A10 volunteer asks you to. Oftentimes, they're looking to keep the lead singer on camera during solos, like during verses or at the start of a bridge. Pay attention to who is leading solos for each song, because this changes during service. Next, let's talk about radios. I mentioned this during the radio training video, and if you haven't seen that, make sure you watch it. If you are having trouble hearing the ATEM volunteer on your radio, first, make sure the headphones are fully covering your ears. They're designed to be noise canceling, and you'll notice as you play around with the adjustment how much of a difference it makes in canceling out noise when they're positioned properly. And secondly, make sure all the volume dials are turned all the way up. Check out the full radio training video if you need a refresher on where all the buttons and knobs are. Be sure to check out the other camera team training videos for more tips. I really hope that these resources give you plenty of useful direction and help you as you keep serving God's mission with excellence.